Dragon. A dragon is not just a creature. It is a symbolic structure humans used to define overwhelming power before they had language for systems, control, or psychology. In Western mythology, the dragon represents destruction that cannot be reasoned with. It's intelligent, but not negotiable. It exists outside human order. It breathes fire not as a weapon it chooses, but as an extension of its nature. Entire kingdoms fall, not because they are weak, but because the dragon does not recognize their authority at all. In The Hobbit, the dragon known as Smaug from The Hobbit is not simply a monster guarding treasure. It represents accumulation without purpose. Gold becomes meaningless to him except as something to possess. He does not trade, build, or create. He consumes and stores. That alone defines his existence. Smaug becomes a symbol of power that has stopped producing value and only maintains control through fear. In Eastern mythology, especially Chinese tradition, the dragon shifts completely. It is not destructive chaos. It is structured balance. It controls rain, rivers, storms, and agricultural cycles. Without it, nature collapses into imbalance. Emperors aligned themselves with dragons not because they feared them, but because dragons represented legitimate authority over natural forces. The same symbol becomes two opposite ideas depending on cultural interpretation. Destruction versus regulation. This contradiction is important. The dragon is not a literal being. It is a mirror reflecting how humans interpret power they cannot fully control or define. Phoenix. The phoenix represents a different system entirely. It is not about external power. It is about internal transformation through collapse. The phoenix does not avoid destruction. It completes it. It reaches the end of its life cycle, builds its own nest, ignites into fire, and is completely consumed. From that destruction, it is reborn again. There is no external rescue, no interruption, no survival through chance. It is a closed loop of destruction and renewal. This concept traces back to ancient Egyptian mythology through the Bennu bird, which symbolized cycles of time, rebirth, and the rising sun. Later Greek interpretations transformed it into the phoenix narrative that spread across cultures. Modern storytelling continues this idea in characters like Fawkes from Harry Potter series. Fawkes burns, disappears, and returns. But more importantly, it heals others, expanding the concept from individual survival to systemic restoration. The phoenix is not about immortality. It is about continuity after total collapse. It answers a question humans constantly face. What remains when everything else is gone? Unicorn. The unicorn appears simple, but its symbolism is precise. It represents purity that cannot be controlled, owned, or corrupted. In medieval European mythology, unicorns were described as untamable creatures. They could not be captured through force. They would only approach purity, often represented through innocence or moral clarity. This creates a symbolic rule. Corruption cannot possess what is fundamentally pure. The unicorn therefore becomes a boundary condition in human imagination. It is not a creature meant to be hunted or dominated. It is a concept that defines limitation. Some things exist, but cannot be taken. This is why unicorns persist across cultures even after belief in their physical existence disappeared. They represent rarity, innocence, and unattainable perfection, not as fantasy, but as emotional truth. Griffin. The griffin is structured differently. It is not about purity or rebirth. It is about combined dominance. A griffin merges two apex predators, the lion and the eagle. The lion represents ground power, strength, territory, physical dominance. The eagle represents aerial power, vision, precision, superiority over distance. When combined, they form a creature that dominates both earth and sky. This is not meant to describe nature. It is meant to describe total authority. In mythology and heraldry, griffins are often guardians of treasure or sacred spaces. Their role is not decorative. It is functional within symbolism. They represent final protection. Nothing passes them unless it is equal or greater in force. The griffin therefore becomes a symbol of absolute hierarchy, not partial strength, not limited control, total dominance across domains. It answers a different question. What does ultimate authority look like when nothing can challenge it? Cerberus. Cerberus shifts the entire system because it introduces a different idea, boundaries that cannot be crossed. In Greek mythology, Cerberus is the guardian of the underworld, a multi-headed dog, commonly depicted with 3 heads, stationed at the entrance of the realm of the dead. Its role is not to destroy everything. Its role is to enforce separation. It allows entry but prevents exit. It ensures that once something crosses into death, it does not return to life. It is not chaos. It is structure applied to the final threshold of existence. Unlike dragons, phoenixes, unicorns, or griffins, Cerberus does not represent power, transformation, purity, or dominance. It represents finality. It is the rule that cannot be broken. Even in myths where heroes confront it, Cerberus is not destroyed. It is bypassed, restrained, or temporarily controlled. That detail is important. Cerberus is not meant to be defeated because it does not represent an opponent. It represents a system boundary. Once crossed, reversal is not part of the design. Leviathan. The Leviathan represents something even larger in scale, chaos at a cosmic level. In mythology, the Leviathan is a massive sea creature associated with the depths of oceans and the unknown forces beneath the surface. It is not just large. It is incomprehensible in scale and power. Unlike dragons, which exist in defined physical form, the Leviathan represents the ocean itself as something alive, uncontrolled, and endless. In biblical and ancient interpretations, the Leviathan is often depicted as a force no human or kingdom can tame. It is not simply a monster in water. It is the embodiment of chaos that exists beyond human structure. Where dragons challenge kingdoms on land, the Leviathan challenges the idea of control itself in the deep unknown. It represents the fear of what exists beneath visibility, where human rules cannot reach. The Leviathan is not about destruction in a direct sense. It is about instability. It represents systems too large, too deep, or too complex to be governed. It is chaos without boundaries, unlike Cerberus, which is strict boundary enforcement. This creates another layer in the symbolic system. Dragon equals controlled or uncontrolled power in the known world. Phoenix equals collapse and renewal cycles. Unicorn equals purity beyond control. Griffin equals structured dominance. Cerberus equals enforced finality. Leviathan equals infinite, uncontained chaos. The Leviathan expands the system into the unknown depths, where order cannot fully exist. It is the reminder that no matter how strong systems become, there will always be forces that exist beyond their reach. Now all 6 creatures form a complete symbolic map of human thought. Dragon represents power that shapes or destroys systems. Phoenix represents collapse that rebuilds systems. Unicorn represents purity that resists systems. Griffin represents dominance within systems. Cerberus represents the boundary where systems end. Leviathan represents chaos beyond systems. These are not just myths. They are early frameworks of understanding reality before science and philosophy gave them different language. They still survive today because the questions they represent still exist. Not in stories, but in reality. If you understand them as symbols instead of creatures, you are no longer just watching mythology. You are reading the original blueprint of human thinking. Subscribe for more deep dives into myth, history, and forgotten symbolism.